The storm screamed across the frozen valley. Wind carried sharp ice that cut through anything left uncovered. A lone figure stumbled through the white wasteland, a man wrapped in a torn survival coat. His visor flickered with red warnings. Oxygen low, body temp critical. Sergeant Mark Davis had survived the crash, but just barely. His ship burned somewhere behind him, now buried under snow and silence. He needed shelter. Fast. Through the blur of the storm, he saw something. An old structure half buried in the ice. Ancient stone. Maybe a temple. Maybe a tomb. Either way, it was his only chance. He forced his frozen legs to move. The metal door creaked open as he pushed his way inside. Inside, the air was still cold but calm. The wind could no longer reach him. His boots echoed softly on the floor. He switched on his wrist light, scanning the walls. Strange symbols glowed faintly. Alien language. He didn't recognize it, but it felt old, sacred. Then, a sound. Soft, fragile, like someone crying. Mark froze. His hand went to the small pistol at his side. He followed the sound through the narrow hallway, every step careful. The sobbing grew clearer. It wasn't human, too soft, too melodic. He turned a corner and saw her. A small figure sat curled in the corner of the ruin. Her skin was pale blue, faintly glowing under the dim light. Long white hair fell over her face, shaking with quiet sobs. Her body was wrapped in torn cloth, her feet bare on the icy floor. She looked up when she heard him. Her eyes were bright silver, reflecting the beam of his wrist light. Fear filled them. She tried to move back, but there was nowhere to go. Don't hurt me, she whispered, her voice trembling. Mark lowered his weapon slowly. I won't, he said softly. I'm not one of them. She tilted her head. You human? He nodded. Yeah, my ship crashed. I just need to rest. I'll leave after the storm passes. The girl's lips trembled. She hugged her knees tighter. Humans are dangerous. My people say they burn stars. They say humans destroy what they touch. Mark gave a tired smile. Sometimes they're right, but right now I just destroy food rations. Her silver eyes studied him carefully. She seemed unsure, torn between fear and curiosity. He sat down near the broken pillar, not too close, and opened a small thermal pack. The smell of warm stew filled the air. His stomach growled loudly. The girl flinched but didn't move away. Hungry? He asked. She looked down. I can't eat human food. Then sit near the fire, he said, lighting a small flame with his wrist device. At least it'll keep you warm. The moment the flame appeared, she gasped and backed away. Fire, bad. It's okay, he said quickly. It won't hurt you, see? He held his hand close to it. Warm, safe. She stared at the flickering light, her breath shaking. Slowly, she stepped closer. The warmth touched her face for the first time. Her trembling stopped. My name's Mark, he said gently. What's yours? She hesitated. Lyra, he repeated with a smile. That's beautiful, she blushed faintly. I'm not pretty. Not like human girls, she said softly. My skin glows. My face is strange. My people say I look wrong. Mark looked at her for a moment, then grinned. You've got two big things they don't. She blinked, confused. Two things. Courage, he said, pointing at her chest. And heart. You're still standing in this storm. That makes you stronger than most humans I know. Lyra looked away, but a small smile touched her lips. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. In the distance, faint red lights moved through the snow. Search drones. They were scanning the wreckage. Mark's smile faded. He reached over and quietly turned off his wrist light. We need to stay quiet, he whispered. Lyra's eyes widened. They're hunting you? Yeah, he whispered back. And now? They're close. The wind outside howled again, but this time it wasn't just the storm. It was the sound of machines approaching. Lyra pressed her hands over her mouth to stop a cry. Mark gripped his weapon tightly, his breath low and steady. The storm wasn't the only thing coming for them now. To be continued. The storm outside raged like a wild beast, but inside the ruin, only the faint crackle of the small fire broke the silence. Mark sat close to the flames, holding his rifle loosely, his eyes fixed on the doorway. Every few seconds, a red light flickered across the storm outside. Drones searching the snowfields. Lyra sat a few feet away, staring at the fire with wide eyes. Her pale blue skin shimmered in the glow, her silver eyes reflecting the flickering light like liquid glass. She had never seen fire before. To her people, flame meant destruction. Their world was cold and still. No heat, no sparks, no light except from the moons. It's alive. She whispered. Mark smiled faintly. It's just energy, same as the sun. Just smaller and a little hungrier. Lyra tilted her head, still uncertain. But it eats everything. It killed forests long ago. That's what we're taught. Mark poked the burning stick gently. It's not evil, he said quietly. It depends on who holds it. Same as everything else. She looked at him curiously. You talk strange for a human. He gave a soft laugh. I hear that a lot. Minutes passed in tense silence. The warmth spread through the cold room, melting the frost on the walls. Lyra reached out slowly, letting the faint heat touch her hands. Her trembling eased. For the first time in her life, she wasn't shivering. Mark pulled a small ration pack from his bag and placed it between them. You sure you don't eat human food? She hesitated, watching him open the seal. The smell of meat and spices filled the air, and her stomach growled softly. She blushed, embarrassed. Here, he said, offering a small piece. Try it. If you hate it, spit it out. I won't tell. Lyra blinked, then took the food carefully. She sniffed it, then took a small bite. Her eyes widened. It's warm, Mark grinned. That's the point. For a moment, the world outside didn't exist. The storm, the drones, the danger, all gone. Just two survivors sharing warmth and silence under broken stone. Then the wind shifted. Mark froze. His visor flashed, movement detected. He turned toward the doorway. Red light swept across the snow again, closer now. They found the trail, he whispered. Lyra's silver eyes went wide. We must hide. Mark nodded, quickly kicking snow and ash over the fire until the flames died. The ruin sank into cold darkness again. Only the sound of his breathing filled the space. Outside, the buzzing of engines grew louder. A harsh metallic voice echoed through the storm. Human signature detected. Begin thermal scan. Lyra's body glowed faintly, her natural biolight betraying them. Mark acted fast. He threw his jacket over her, pressing her gently against the wall. Don't move, he whispered. She trembled under his touch, her heart beat fast. The jacket covered her glow, but her fear made her shake. Breathe slow, he whispered again. Like this. He took a slow, steady breath. She copied him. Her glow dimmed, the rhythm of her breathing matching his. Outside, the red light stopped at the entrance. Mark aimed his rifle silently. The door shook as the drone scanned the inside. Lyra's small fingers gripped his sleeve tightly. She didn't speak, but her eyes asked a question. Will they kill us? He gave a tiny nod, then whispered, Not if I do first. Seconds stretched into eternity. The drones hovered, scanning, humming. Then silence. They drifted away, vanishing into the storm. Mark didn't move until the last red light disappeared. Only then did he exhale. We're clear. For now. Lyra slowly pulled off his jacket. Her glow returned, soft and dim like moonlight. You saved me, she whispered. He smiled tiredly. We saved each other. Outside, thunder rolled again. But this time another sound joined it, a deep, mechanical hum. Mark turned toward the open crack in the wall and froze. Far away. Through the storm, he saw it. A giant alien transport, descending slowly onto the snow. It wasn't a search drone. It was an army. He looked back at Lyra. We can't stay here. Her voice shook. Where will we go? Mark checked his rifle and reloaded. Somewhere they don't expect. The storm swallowed his words as they stepped out into the blinding snow, two shadows against the endless white. To be continued. Snow fell like ash from a dying sky. The storm had calmed, but the danger had not. Mark and Lyra moved through the frozen forest, their boots crunching softly over layers of ice. The trees were tall and black, their shapes bending under the weight of snow, whispering in the wind. The alien transport behind them glowed faintly through the fog, massive, alive, and hunting. Dozens of red eyes swept the land, searching for the escaped human. Mark tightened the strap of his rifle and glanced at Lyra. Her thin body shivered with each gust of cold. Her blue skin glowed faintly in the darkness, making it impossible for her to hide. You're glowing again, he said quietly. I can't stop it, she whispered. It happens when I'm afraid, he sighed. Then we need to move faster. They reached a frozen river that cut through the forest like a silver wound. Lyra knelt down, touching the ice with her hand. Underneath there are tunnels, she said softly. Old escape paths made by my people long ago. Mark looked doubtful. Are they safe? She looked up, eyes glimmering. Nothing here is safe, but it's better than being out in the open. Without another word, she slid her hand across the ice and began to hum, a low, haunting melody. The air around her shimmered and the ice cracked, revealing a narrow opening. A cold mist rose from it like breath from the planet itself. Mark stared in quiet awe. You just sang the ice open. It listens to me, she said simply. Sometimes. They climbed down into the tunnel below, the entrance closing behind them with a soft, echoing groan. The passage was narrow and dim, lined with glowing blue veins of crystal. Their faint light reflected on the frozen walls, creating moving shadows that danced with every step. Mark's breath formed clouds in the cold air. His muscles ached, and the crash wound on his leg throbbed painfully. But he said nothing. Lyra noticed. You're hurt, she whispered. It's nothing, he said, limping slightly. You bleed, she said softly, stopping. Humans break too easily, he chuckled under his breath. Yeah, but we don't stay broken for long. Lyra tore a strip from her sleeve and wrapped it gently around his leg. Her hands were small but steady. When she looked up, her silver eyes met his. Thank you, he said quietly. She nodded, and they continued walking. But the peace didn't last. A sudden vibration rippled through the tunnel walls. Lyra froze. They found us. How? The ice remembers footsteps, she whispered. Their scanners can hear our echoes. Mark raised his rifle, checking the charge. Then let's make sure they don't hear us again. They moved deeper into the tunnels, running now, their breaths quick and heavy. Behind them, distant lights appeared, search drones gliding through the passages like silent predators. Lyra led him down a fork, then another, until they reached a wide chamber filled with ancient carvings. Strange alien faces were etched into the ice, watching them from every side. Mark's visor flickered again, movement detected. Before he could react, a red beam cut through the chamber wall, searing the air. The heat melted the ice where it hit. They're here, Mark shouted. The drones swarmed in, 3 of them moving fast. Mark dropped to one knee and fired. Bolts of blue plasma flashed through the dark. One drone exploded, showering sparks. Another fired back, the blast hitting the wall beside Lyra. She screamed and fell to the ground, covering her face. Mark threw himself over her, shielding her body with his. His shoulder burned where the plasma grazed him. He gritted his teeth, aimed, and shot the last 2 drones in quick bursts. The tunnel fell silent again. Smoke rose from the melted ice. Lyra opened her eyes, trembling. You protected me, he smiled weakly. Guess we're even now. But then the ground shook beneath them, a deeper, heavier sound. Not drones this time. Lyra's face turned pale. That's not a machine. That's them. The hunters, Mark pulled her up. Then we keep moving. She pointed ahead to a narrow crack in the ice wall. Through there. It leads to the canyon. They ran again, their shadows stretching long behind them as more red lights filled the tunnel. The storm above had been cruel, but what was coming from below was worse. The wind screamed again, only this time it carried more than snow. It carried the sound of engines, of metal feet crushing ice. The hunters were here. Mark and Lyra burst out of the tunnel and into a canyon wide enough to swallow a city. The walls rose high, made of frozen stone that shimmered with a strange blue light. Above them, red drones circled like vultures, their beams cutting through the snowstorm. Keep running, Mark shouted over the roar of the wind. Lyra's glowing markings flickered brighter as she ran, her breath sharp in the cold air. Her small frame moved fast, too fast for a human, but she kept slowing down to help him. Mark's leg injury had worsened. Blood dripped into the snow with every step. He stumbled once, almost falling. Lyra caught his arm, her strength surprising for her size. You can't stop now, she said, her voice breaking. They'll kill you. Mark gave her a faint smile through the pain. Not before I return the favor. Behind them, a blinding flash, then a sound like thunder. A plasma blast tore into the canyon wall, showering them with shards of ice. Lyra screamed. A drone shot down from above, its glowing eyes locking onto Mark's heat signature. He aimed, fired, missed. The rifle hissed as its energy cell drained. He ducked behind a fallen pillar. Out of charge! Lyra pressed her hands to the ground. Stay down, she whispered. Her voice trembled, but her eyes, those glowing silver eyes, turned fierce. She began to hum again, low and deep. The sound grew louder, vibrating through the ground. The air shimmered, then cracked like glass breaking underwater. The ice around her trembled, forming sharp crystals that pointed toward the sky. The drone fired. The blast hit one of the crystals and bounced back. The explosion tore through the air, sending metal flying. Mark's eyes widened. What the hell was that? My curse, she whispered, breathing hard. That's why they banished me. Mark stood slowly, watching the smoke fade. The snow was red now, melted blood and burning ice. He reached out, his gloved hand brushing her shoulder. That wasn't a curse, Lyra. That just saved our lives. She looked at him, tears freezing on her cheeks. You don't understand. My people fear me. They said my voice brings death. Mark glanced at the destroyed drone and smiled grimly. Then maybe it's time death chose the right side. But their moment ended too soon. A loud mechanical roar echoed from above. Through the storm descended a towering alien mech, 3 stories high, armor black as obsidian. Its sensors glowed like molten suns. Lyra gasped. That's a commander unit. Mark gritted his teeth. Figures, the mech aimed its cannon. The ground shook as it fired, and Mark barely pulled Lyra behind a wall of ice. The blast shattered it instantly, throwing them apart. Lyra fell hard, her arm scraping against jagged rock. Blood the color of violet light oozed down her skin. Lyra, Mark shouted, crawling toward her. His leg burned, his body weak. The mech raised its weapon again. He didn't think. He just acted. Grabbing a shard of the broken crystal, he jammed it into the mech's cannon socket. The weapon overloaded. Light burst from within and exploded, hurling him backward. The explosion lit up the sky, painting it with fire. Snow melted into steam. Mark hit the ground hard, the world spinning. When he opened his eyes, Lyra was beside him, trying to lift his head into her lap. Her hands glowed faintly as she pressed them to his wound. You're bleeding too much, she whispered. He smiled weakly. You should see the other guy. Tears glimmered in her eyes. Why do you keep saving me? Because, he said slowly, his voice barely above the wind. You make me forget I'm supposed to be afraid. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. Around them, the storm began to calm. But far away, beyond the canyon, they could see more lights approaching. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Lyra looked toward the horizon in fear. They won't stop. Mark reached for his rifle, reloading what little he had left. Then neither will we. The two stood together in the red snow, one human, one alien, as the storm closed around them once more. The storm had faded into a gray silence. The canyon was behind them now, burning wreckage buried in the snow, smoke curling like ghosts into the pale sky. Mark limped beside Lyra, his body aching, every step heavier than the last. Yet he kept moving. He didn't look back. Ahead, the mountains rose like teeth, their peaks glowing faintly in the dying light. Lyra led him toward a narrow opening hidden between 2 cliffs. She paused, catching her breath. This is it, she whispered. The Cave of Echoes. Mark squinted at the entrance. A soft hum came from inside, like 1,000 distant voices whispering all at once. Sounds friendly, he muttered. It's not a place of the living, Lyra said softly. It remembers everything. The air grew warmer as they entered. The walls pulsed with blue light, veins of crystal running deep through the stone. The glow reflected in Lyra's eyes, making her look like part of the cave itself, ancient, connected, alive. Mark reached out and touched the wall. It vibrated faintly like a heartbeat. Feels alive. It is, she said. This place was built by my ancestors. They served your kind once, long ago, before the wars. Mark frowned. My kind, you mean humans? Lyra nodded. You came to our world in the Age of Fire. You gave us the gift of voice, taught us to speak through sound and light. But when the sky burned, you vanished. My people said the humans turned into gods. And then monsters, he stared at her. We're not gods, just stubborn animals that refuse to die. She smiled faintly. Then maybe you're both. They reached the heart of the cave, a vast chamber filled with floating crystals. They shimmered like stars caught in stone. At the center stood a tall pillar with human symbols etched into its surface. Mark froze. That's English. He stepped closer, brushing dust from the letters. The words were faint but readable. For the alliance that must rise again. A deep vibration filled the cave. The crystals began to glow brighter. Lyra stepped back, eyes wide. You woke it. The pillar split open, releasing a beam of light that scanned them both. Then a voice echoed through the chamber. Calm, deep, and unmistakably human. Identification confirmed. Terran Commander Mark Davis, Alliance Protocol active. Mark's breath caught. What the hell? The voice continued, accompanied by air of the voice. Welcome, descendants. The Alliance remembers. Lyra looked confused. Air of the voice? That can't be me. Mark turned toward her slowly. Lyra, when you sang to open the ice, the cave responded. Maybe you really are what it says, she shook her head. No, I'm a mistake. I was exiled for this curse. Mark placed a hand on her shoulder. Or maybe your people were afraid of what they didn't understand. The crystals above shifted, forming holographic images. Humans and aliens standing side by side, building cities, exploring stars. A vision of peace. Then the images changed, showing war, flames, betrayal. The alliance shattered. The last humans fled, leaving behind chaos. The voice spoke again, echoing through the chamber. To restore balance, the air and the human must awaken the gate. Coordinates locked. Activation requires both signatures. Lyra's hands trembled. The gate? That's a myth. Mark grinned faintly. Seems like your myths are real. He turned to the pillar's console, where two glowing circles awaited. One for a human hand, one for hers. Ready? He asked. She hesitated, looking at him with fear and trust tangled together. If we do this, they'll come for us. They already are, he said softly. Let's give them something to chase. Together they placed their hands on the console. Light exploded through the chamber. Blinding, powerful, alive. The crystals sang, echoing Lyra's voice and Mark's heartbeat in one rhythm. Outside, the mountain shook. The sky split open with a column of light stretching toward the stars. Far away, alien ships detected it and turned toward the signal. Lyra stared up at the light, her voice breaking into a whisper. What have we done? Mark looked at her with a small, knowing smile. Something impossible. The light from the gate still glowed above the mountain, a column stretching into the night sky like a wound in space. It pulsed slowly, each wave of brightness echoing through the frozen valley. Mark and Lyra stood at the edge of the cave, both staring up at the impossible sight. The storm had gone silent. Even the wind seemed to fear the power that had awakened. Mark's breath came out in clouds. Whatever we just did, he said quietly. Every scanner in the sector probably saw it. Lyra's eyes shimmered faintly. Then the hunters are coming. Let them, he muttered. We've got something they don't. She turned toward him, her face glowing softly from the crystals around them. What's that? He smiled just a little. Hope. They moved deeper into the cave's control chamber. The walls glowed with symbols, human and alien mixed together. Some words Mark could read, others pulsed in patterns that only Lyra seemed to understand. It's speaking, she whispered. Not in words, but in feelings. Mark frowned, scanning the console. Can you translate feelings? She smiled faintly. You'd be surprised. As she placed her hands on the surface, the symbols shifted, responding to her touch. The room filled with a low hum, and a holographic projection flickered into life. A map of the galaxy, with one system marked in bright blue. Lyra's silver eyes widened. That's not my world, it's yours. Mark leaned closer. Earth. The projection zoomed in, revealing two glowing icons, one shaped like a key, the other like a gate. A calm voice spoke from nowhere, the same deep human voice from before. The gate may only open when both codes unite, the voice and the human. Mark looked at Lyra. That's us. She shook her head slowly. I don't understand what it wants from me. Maybe it's not about understanding, he said. Maybe it's about trusting. A deep rumble shook the chamber. Dust fell from the ceiling. The voice continued. Warning. Hostile signatures approaching. Defensive protocols offline. Mark cursed under his breath. Of course they'd find us now. He checked his rifle, saw the red indicator, charge depleted. Out again. Lyra stared at the console, panic rising in her chest. We can't fight them all. Mark turned to her, his face calm despite the chaos. Then we don't. We finish what we started. The crystal light reflected in his eyes like fire. You said the cave listens to you. Make it hear you again. Lyra hesitated. If I use that voice, it could kill you too. He stepped closer, resting a hand on her shoulder. I trust you. Do it. Her breath caught. The weight of his words pressed into her chest. Simple, human trust. Something she had never known before. The ground trembled. Alien soldiers entered the tunnel, dark armor, glowing eyes, moving like shadows. Their weapons hummed with lethal power. Mark stood between them and Lyra, unarmed but unafraid. The commander's voice echoed through his helmet. Human, surrender the air. She belongs to us. Mark smiled coldly. You'll have to convince her yourself. Lyra closed her eyes. Her hands began to glow. The markings on her skin burned with light brighter than before. She drew in a long breath and then sang. The sound was soft at first, like wind through glass. Then it grew. The entire cave vibrated with her voice. The crystals lit up, answering her call. The soldiers staggered, their visors cracking. The ground split open beneath them. Light surged from every wall, forming waves that rippled through the air. Mark shielded his eyes. Lyra! But she didn't stop. Her song turned into pure energy, an ancient command woven into the cave itself. The alien army screamed as the light consumed them, their bodies dissolving into dust. The gate roared to life, its energy spiraling upward like a living storm. Lyra fell to her knees, trembling. The glow faded from her skin. Mark caught her before she collapsed completely. Hey, stay with me. She looked up at him weakly. The gate. It's ready. He glanced toward the light rising through the mountain. The air shimmered, forming a glowing circle, an open path to somewhere else. Where does it lead? He asked. Her voice was faint. Home. Or maybe to where it all began. Outside, the mountains shook again. More ships were coming. Mark lifted her into his arms, his face set with quiet resolve. Then that's where we're going. He stepped into the light, to be continued. Light swallowed them whole. For a moment there was no sound, no air, only motion. It felt like falling through a dream. Then, silence. Mark opened his eyes to a world of gold and silver skies. The air was warm, filled with drifting lights like glowing dust. He set Lyra gently on the soft ground. Beneath them, grass shimmered as if made of crystal. Lyra stirred weakly. Her silver eyes blinked open, reflecting the strange beauty around them. Where are we? She whispered. Mark looked across the horizon. In the distance stood towering ruins, half human, half alien in design. Broken banners hung from the wind, marked with both emblems, the Terran eagle and the voice sigil. I think, he said softly, this was where it all began. They walked together toward the ruins. The place felt sacred, like time had stopped here long ago. Every step echoed faintly, as if the world remembered them. Lyra touched one of the stone walls. My people told stories of this place. A world lost in the war. They said no one could survive here. Mark smiled faintly. Guess we proved them wrong. The wind carried a low hum, the same kind of vibration they had heard inside the Cave of Echoes. But this time, it was calm, almost welcoming. As they entered the heart of the ruins, they found a massive circular platform. At its center glowed a dormant console waiting. The same design as the one in the cave, but older. It's the other half, Mark murmured. The human code. Lyra frowned. You think it's alive? He placed his hand on the console. A pulse of light spread from his palm. The platform responded, awakening with a deep, melodic tone. Command signature verified, a voice said. Terran link restored, awaiting dual activation. Mark looked at Lyra. Looks like it's waiting for you too. She hesitated. What if I fail? You won't. His voice was steady. You never did. Lyra stepped forward, her fingers trembling as she touched the second circle. A wave of light rippled outward, surrounding them both. Images filled the air, humans and aliens working together, building worlds, exploring stars. Then came darkness, war, betrayal, silence. The voice continued. The alliance was broken by fear, but its heart remains. Together, human and voice can restore it. Mark watched the images shift into something new. Earth and Lyra's homeworld, connected by a shining bridge of light. It's giving us a choice, he whispered, to bring it all back. She looked up at him. Can we really fix what they destroyed? He smiled, his eyes gentle. Maybe not fix it, but we can start again. The ground trembled. A dark shadow fell over them. Above the ruins, alien ships descended, massive, cold, ready to fire. Lyra's glow flickered nervously. They found us. Mark took a deep breath. Then let's finish before they do. He gripped her hand tightly. Together. She nodded, and both pressed their palms fully onto the console. The world exploded in light. The ruins trembled as power surged through them. A wave of energy burst upward, striking the alien ships mid-air. Their weapons melted in silence as beams of pure light wrapped around them, disarming without destroying. The ships hovered, frozen in place, caught in the radiance. Lyra's voice merged with the sound of the crystals. Her song was no longer fear or pain. It was peace. Her markings blazed bright gold, not blue. She had become the voice reborn. Mark's chest ached as he watched her. Lyra, he whispered, you're beautiful. She smiled softly through tears. You told me once I had two big things humans didn't. He grinned faintly, even as the light surrounded them both, courage and heart. Her voice trembled. And maybe something else now. The platform glowed brighter. Above them, the two worlds aligned across the sky, Earth and her homeworld shining together for the first time in centuries. Then, silence again. When Mark opened his eyes, they were no longer in ruins. He was lying on a bed inside a bright medical room. The air smelled like earth. Through the window, he saw oceans and blue skies. He turned his head and froze. Lyra sat beside him, wearing a soft white cloak. Her eyes were still silver, her skin faintly glowing. Humans moved around her, scientists and soldiers all staring in awe, but not fear. She looked at him and smiled. We made it. Mark reached for her hand. Guess we changed history. She laughed quietly. No, Mark. We just reminded them what it means to be human. Outside the window, the two planets shone in the same sky, connected by a faint bridge of light. And for the first time in centuries, the stars sang again. The end.